Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are plunging into, well, a really compelling story and teaching. It's from an ancient text, the Dhammapada Commentary.
A classic source.
Yeah, and this source, it unfolds a tale about five monks, right? And they have this question about guarding the senses.
And it leads to a really profound lesson from the Buddha himself,
Yeah.
illustrated with this quite dramatic past life story.
Exactly. So the mission for us today for this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to pull out the core insights. What does this text tell us about attention, about self-control, and really why managing what comes in through our inner doors is so fundamental if you want release from suffering?
It's a key concept.
It really is. So get ready, because we're about to unpack a piece of wisdom that feels, honestly, remarkably relevant even now.
Okay, so the scene gets set, as it often does in these commentaries, at the Jetavana monastery. That's where the Buddha was residing at the time.
Right, standard setting.
And into this scene come 5 monks. But the text points out something specific about them. Each one had taken on a particular challenge. They were individually focused, quite diligently, on guarding just one of the 5 sense doors.
Ah, okay. So one for the eye, one for the ear, nose, tongue, body, like that.
Exactly like that. Each guarding just one.
So they're hyper-focused.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this focus maybe turned into a bit of a competition. The text says one day they got together and started debating. Each one totally convinced that their particular sense door, the one they were guarding, was the most difficult one.
Yeah, apparently they're quite vocal repeating this phrase, I am guarding the hard to guard, each claiming it for their own sense.
Right, like, no, my job is harder.
Pretty much. And naturally, they couldn't agree among themselves. So what often happens in these stories when there's a dispute?
They take it to the boss.
They decide they need the ultimate authority. They decide to go ask the Buddha to settle it for them.
Makes sense. And so they laid it out for him.
They did. They approached the Buddha and asked, basically, Venerable Sir, look, we're guarding these sense doors, and we each think our door is the really hard one. So among us, who is actually guarding the hard to guard?
It's a very direct question, isn't it? Born right out of their own struggle.
And the Buddha's response, it just cuts right through their whole argument. He doesn't single anyone out.
He doesn't pick a winner.
No. He tells them, quite plainly, monks, all of these are hard to guard.
Okay, so that settles the argument, but it also kind of ups the ante. Nobody gets off easy.
Exactly. And he doesn't just leave it there. He immediately tells them this difficulty isn't, new for them. He says, furthermore, it is not only now that you are unguarded in the 5 doors. Previously, too, you were unguarded.
Oof. So you've had this problem before.
Right. And he connects this past failure, this unguardedness, to a really serious outcome. He explains the consequence. Because of being unguarded, you did not act according to the advice of the wise and met with the destruction of life.
Wow, destruction of life. That's heavy. It's not just about struggling with focus. It's life and death.
It really raises the stakes. This isn't just some minor failing.
Yeah, no kidding. I can see why they'd immediately want to know more. So they asked him, when, Venerable Sir, when did this happen?
Exactly. And that's the cue. This is where the Buddha expands on it by telling a story from one of his own past lives, a Jātaka tale. Specifically, the Takkasilā Jātaka.
Okay, so a story within a story.
Right. And in that past life, the being who would eventually become the Buddha, he was known as the great being, the Bodhisattva. And he was on this pretty perilous journey, his goal, to gain the kingdom of Takkasilā.
And his companions on this journey, let me guess.
You got it. The 5 individuals who, in the present life, are these 5 monks. Back then, they were his companions, armed, traveling with him, supposedly for protection.
Okay, so the past is mirroring the present challenge. And this is where things go wrong for them in the past.
Precisely. Along the journey, they encounter these beings called ogresses.
Ogresses, okay.
But the text emphasizes these weren't just, obviously monstrous figures. They presented themselves in incredibly attractive forms.
Ah, subtle danger.
Very subtle. Using objects designed specifically to entice through those very sense doors the monks are struggling with. Now beautiful sights, alluring sounds, tempting smells, tastes, physical contact.
The whole package deal aimed right at the senses.
Exactly. And those 5 companions back then, being unguarded in their senses, just like now, they fell for it completely.
They didn't listen to the Bodhisattva?
No, they disregarded his wise advice. Stay focused. Be vigilant. Instead, they engaged with the sensory temptations. And the consequence was brutal. They were literally devoured by the ogresses. They met their demise.
Devoured. That's such a potent image for being consumed by sensory desire or distraction.
It really is. But then you have the contrast. The Bodhisattva, the future Buddha, he demonstrated the alternative.
He was guarded.
He was guarded. Faced with the exact same tempting sense objects, he maintained his restraint. The text even notes a beautiful ogress followed him really closely, trying everything to lure him.
And he just ignored her.
Disregarded her completely.
Yeah.
Kept his focus. Because he maintained that inner guardedness, he completed the journey safely to Takkasilā. And he succeeded. He attained kingship.
Wow. So success versus destruction, all hinging on that inner guardedness.
Absolutely. And upon achieving his goal, getting that safety and prosperity, the Bodhisattva uttered what's called an udana, an inspired utterance.
Okay.
And it perfectly sums up why he succeeded. He basically said, because I was established in the Wise One's guidance, because I had firm persistence, because I was fearless, that's why we didn't fall under the sway of the ogresses. That safety from great danger, that was for me.
So he credits his success directly to following the advice, having inner strength, and not being overcome by the temptation or the fear.
Exactly. And then the Buddha brings it right back to the present moment, making the connection crystal clear for those 5 monks.
He tells them, that was me and that was you.
Yep. He identifies himself as that Bodhisattva king, and he tells the 5 monks, you guys, you were those same 5 companions who were unguarded, didn't listen, and, well, perished.
Talk about a powerful lesson from the past.
It really drives home the principle he's about to teach explicitly. This isn't about just one sense door being the hard one. A practitioner, a monk, anyone serious about this path.
He's to guard all the doors.
All of them.
Yeah.
And guarding them isn't just, a good practice technique. It's presented as the direct and necessary path to freedom from all suffering.
Okay, so after that incredibly dramatic story, laying the groundwork, the Buddha didn't just stop there. He elaborated, right? He gave specific verses to really hammer home the importance of sense restraint.
He did. And the verses are quite straightforward in their structure. They list the doors and state the benefit of restraining each one.
Can you give us the gist?
The core message that comes through is basically good is restraint of the eye, good is restraint of the ear, good is restraint of the nose, good is restraint of the tongue, good is restraint of the body.
Okay, the 5 senses.
Good is restraint of speech, good is restraint of the mind, good is restraint everywhere.
Restraint everywhere.
So it expands beyond just those classic 5 senses. It brings in body, speech, and mind as equally vital doors that need guarding.
Absolutely. It's comprehensive. And the conclusion of this teaching, the final verse, is incredibly powerful. It's the ultimate promise.
What does it say?
He concludes, the monk restrained everywhere is freed from all suffering.
Freed from all suffering. That's quite a statement.
It is. Big promise.
Okay, so that's the big picture. Guard all the doors, get freedom from suffering. But what does guarding actually, look like in practice? How does it work? This is where the commentary really helps, right? It breaks down the mechanism.
Exactly. It gets into the how, focusing really on the mental aspect of it.
So take guarding the eye, for example. And it's similar for the ear, nose, and tongue. It's not about, literally shutting your eyes or plugging your ear.
You can't just avoid seeing or hearing things all the time.
You're right. When a visual object or a sound or a smell or a taste comes into range, that initial contact, that's unavoidable. You see the thing, you hear the sound.
Okay, so the input happens.
The input happens. Guarding the door is about what happens next. It means not letting attachment or craving hook onto pleasant objects. It means not letting aversion or dislike flare up towards unpleasant objects.
And not getting confused.
Critically, yes. Not letting delusion or confusion take hold just because you're carelessly observing or reacting without mindfulness.
So it's not the initial seeing or hearing, it's the reaction to it. That's the moment of guarding.
That's the absolute key. The commentary describes this guarding, this blocking, covering, protecting, as happening not at the split second of initial contact, but in the mental process that follows immediately after.
Yeah.
This specific moment is referred to in the Abhidhamma tradition as the Jetavana moment.
Ah, the Jetavana moment. Okay, let's unpack that a bit because it sounds like that is the crucial window.
It really is. Think of it like this. Seeing something is like your mind getting an email notification. Ping.
Right.
The Jetavana moment is when your mind clicks open that notification and starts typing the reply, ooh, I love this, or ooh, I hate this, or maybe just, what's this? without really paying attention.
Oh, okay, so it's the reactive processing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Guarding isn't stopping the notification from arriving. It's about consciously managing your mind's response in that split second after it arrives, before the attachment, I want that, or aversion, get it away, or delusion, whatever, fully takes root and drags you into unskillful action or suffering.
Controlling the mental follow-through, that analogy. Yeah, that helps clarify it. It's about catching that impulse before it runs the show.
Precisely.
So that covers the traditional five senses. What about guarding the body, speech, and mind? How does that work?
Well, guarding the body connects directly to our physical actions. Being unguarded here means engaging in harmful or unskillful conduct. The text mentions things like killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, the basic ethical precepts.
Okay.
Being guarded simply means consciously refraining from those unskillful physical actions and, ideally, cultivating skillful ones like generosity or harmlessness.
So it's about aligning our physical behavior with ethical understanding. Makes sense. And speech. Pretty similar logic.
Very similar. Guarding the speech door relates to our verbal actions. Unguarded speech means, lying, slander, harsh words, idle chatter.
All the ways we can cause harm with words.
Exactly. Guarding that door means cultivating the opposite.
Right.
Truthful speech, kind speech, speech that brings people together, speech that's useful and timely.
Right. And finally, the mind itself. Guarding the mind door. That sounds maybe the trickiest.
It's perhaps the most subtle, yeah, but also the most fundamental, because that's where it all starts. Guarding the mind is about being aware of and managing our mental states directly.
So what's an unguarded mind look like here?
It means allowing unskillful states like, say, covetousness, intense wanting, the Pali term, or ill will, or wrong views, to just arise and take hold. Especially, again, during that reactive Jetavana moment in the mind door process where thoughts and emotions are forming.
And guarding it.
Guarding the mind involves actively cultivating the opposite states. Non-covetousness, anapish, developing loving kindness instead of ill will, fostering right understanding instead of confusion.
So it's an active internal cultivation.
Very active. So the commentary lays it all out.
Yeah.
You've got these 8 doors of guarding the 5 senses, plus body, speech, and mind, and conversely, 8 doors of not guarding.
And the implication is huge.
Absolutely. Being in that state of not guarding these 8 doors, letting those reactions run wild, that's what keeps us trapped, keeps us bound to the suffering of samsara, the cycle of existence. But being established in guarding them, that mindful awareness and restraint, especially in that reactive moment that is presented as the path to release. Release from all suffering rooted in that cycle.
That is such a powerful and actually a very practical framework. It lays out the goal freedom, but also the specific areas we need to work on. And what happened for the 5 monks who started this whole discussion? What was the immediate result for them after hearing all this?
Well, the text states that at the conclusion of the Buddha's discourse, having heard the story, the verses, the explanation, those 5 monks attained the fruit of stream entry. Sotāpatti.
Stream entry, that's significant, isn't it? That's the first stage of awakening on the Buddhist path.
It's a major breakthrough. It means they've seen the path clearly, cut through certain fundamental misunderstandings, and are now irreversibly on the way to full liberation. They won't fall back into lower states of existence.
Wow. So just from hearing and really internalizing this teaching about guarding the doors, they had this profound shift.
A life-changing shift.
Yeah.
And the text also makes a point of saying it wasn't just for those 5 monks. The teaching was beneficial for the others who were there too, the wider assembly listening to the Buddha.
So it resonated broadly.
It clearly did.
Okay, so let's bring this home. We have this ancient story, this cautionary tale of the ogresses devouring the unguarded, and this really deep teaching on guarding all the doors. What does this mean for you listening right now? Navigating a world that's just overflowing, isn't it? Constant sensory input, notifications going off, endless feeds, not to mention all the internal mental chatter.
Yeah, the ogresses might look different today, maybe more digital, but the core challenge is the same.
Seems like it.
And I think the central lesson is incredibly practical. It's not telling us, go live in a cave or shut down all your senses. That's not the point.
Right.
It's pointing towards developing a crucial inner skill, cultivating mindful attention, conscious awareness, precisely in that moment after sensory contact happens or after thought pops up, that Jetavana moment we talked about.
Catching the reaction.
Catching the mind's immediate impulse, that automatic like or dislike or confusion, and consciously choosing not to let it just take root and carry you away into craving, aversion, stress, suffering.
It's a really powerful reminder, then, that true freedom freedom from getting devoured by all the stuff the world throws at us or our own minds throw at us. It doesn't start by trying to escape the world.
Oh.
It starts by diligently, carefully guarding the doors right within ourselves. Our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, our speech, and maybe most importantly, our mind.
That's where the leverage is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe something to consider for you listening. In your own daily life right now, which of these doors feels like the biggest challenge? Where does that automatic mental reaction, that Jetavana impulse, most often seem to lead you into wanting something you can't have, or pushing away something unpleasant, or just getting lost in thought?
A good question to reflect on.
And just consider, what might it look like, even in a small way, to bring just a little more conscious awareness, a little pause, a little intentional restraint right there, in that specific area, in that specific reactive moment, something to think about.